So the self-inflicted damage for Donald Trump continues to be done. The doctor who developed the Montreal Cognitive Assessment, that's the so-called test that Trump took and claims he aced. The doctor that created that test has come out and said, listen, this is supposed to be an easy test. It's really just meant to screen out relatively serious cognitive decline. And remember that this is now relevant again, because in Donald Trump's bizarre interview with Fox News host Chris Wallace over the weekend, Trump talked about how he aced the test. Joe Biden couldn't do well on the test, Trump said. Trump said the last 5 questions are really tough. And at one point, when Chris Wallace said they're not really tough, Trump accused Chris Wallace of being unable to answer some of the questions. It was completely outrageous as far as a thing to say. But more importantly, the real story here, as we're now hearing, as we hear from the doctor who developed the test, the story is that Trump found some of the questions difficult. That's really the red flag. Here's a reminder of what Donald Trump said before we get to what the doctor has now said.
People, who is more competent? Whose mind is sounder? Biden beats you in that.
Well, I tell you what, let's take a test. Let's take a test right now. Let's go down. Joe and I will take a test. Let him take the same test that I took.
Incidentally, I took the test, too, when I heard that you passed it.
Yeah, how did you do it?
Well, it's not the hardest test.
No, but
there's a picture and it says, what's that? And it's an elephant.
No. You see, that's all misrepresentation.
Well, that's what it was on the web.
It's all misrepresentation. Because, yes, the first few questions are easy, but I'll bet you couldn't even answer the last 5 questions. I'll bet you couldn't. They get very hard, the last 5 questions.
Well, one of them was count back from 100 by 7.
And let me tell you, you couldn't answer.
All right, what's the question?
Many of the questions. I'd get you the test. I'd like to give it. But I guarantee you that Joe Biden could not answer those questions. Okay? And I answered all 35 questions correctly.
So Trump said the first few questions are easy, but I bet you couldn't even answer the last 5 questions. They get very hard. Now, it is strange. This is a test, again, meant to screen out relatively serious cognitive decline. It's weird, but by saying Chris Wallace couldn't answer the last 5 questions, he's essentially saying he believes Chris Wallace is suffering from cognitive decline. Now, this entire portion of the interview is crazy also because the test doesn't have 35 questions. Although it's based on a maximum score of 30 points, it doesn't have 35 questions. And that's sort of a weird thing for Trump to say. It is also crazy for Trump to say Chris Wallace couldn't get the questions right. But now we have heard from Dr. Ziad Nasreddine, who developed this test. And Dr. Nasreddine is now speaking out and saying, listen, this talk about tough questions doesn't make any sense. This test is supposed to be really easy for anyone who's not cognitively impaired. Trump talked about acing the test like it's some kind of an accomplishment when he spoke to Hannity. I believe it was last week. Remember this one?
He didn't mean that because he hasn't taken any cognitive tests because he couldn't pass one. I actually took one when I very recently when I was, the radical left was saying, "Is he all there? Is he all there?" And I proved I was all there because I aced it. I aced the test, and he should take the same exact test, a very standard test. I took it at Walter Reed Medical Center. In front of doctors, and they were very surprised. They said, that's an unbelievable thing. Rarely does anybody do what you just did. But he should take that same test. But no, he has been totally taken over.
Aced the test. I mean, this is ridiculous. And Dr. Ziad Nasreddine said to MarketWatch that, quote, this is not an IQ test or the level of how a person is extremely skilled or not. The test is supposed to help physicians detect early signs of Alzheimer's. And it became very popular because it was a short test and very sensitive for early impairment. The normal score, according to Dr. Nasreddine, is 27 out of 30. The toughest part is being given 5 words and then being asked to recall them after 5 minutes. And then I believe it's like after 10 minutes. And when you're in the middle of taking a test, this is the point. That part is sometimes the one that's tougher for people, even not suffering from cognitive impairment. But beyond that, this is an easy test where the normal score is almost perfect. The test cannot determine if somebody is smart. The test cannot determine if somebody has a high level of ability. And when Trump said, doctors were shocked, they had never seen someone do what I did on this test, it's outrageous and it's laughable. So the big takeaways here are, Trump said that the questions get tough at the end. That's not true. That's a concern. Number two, Trump said he recently took it. We've not been told that Trump took this test since 2018. As far as we knew, Trump took the Montreal Cognitive Assessment in 2018. So if Trump was again tested recently, it would be worth knowing why, where, and what the circumstances were, because that's not actually been revealed. And number two, again, Trump talks about 35 questions and the last few are hard. If he's talking about this test, that's a real problem. If he was given some other test, then that would also be important for the public to know. And then lastly, maybe most importantly, Trump doesn't understand the nature of this test. Like when he talks about acing it and impressing doctors, this is a test where unless you're suffering from cognitive decline, you do really well on it. It's not that doctors would go, wow, you really did it. It turns out that you're not actually suffering from cognitive decline. We're so impressed with you, Mr. President. That's weird. And that's another question. Now, the other thing is people don't even typically take this test unless there's a question about their cognitive ability. Now, maybe because of all of the things swirling around Trump looked for a test to take. But it also shouldn't be ignored that in normal circumstances, this is a test that a physician would suggest if they have some reason to think it's important to screen out cognitive decline. Who knows? Every aspect of this just stinks to high heaven. And as usual, Trump's discussions of the test only raise more questions. How many questions are on it? Why did Trump find them tough? Which test did he take? Who administered it? When did he take it? Why hasn't it been mentioned? Or is he talking about 2018? I don't know that we're going to get answers to these questions, but the important thing is we don't really need any answers to these questions to know he has to be voted out in just over 3 months. That part is clear, and that's what's making this increasingly simple for more and more voters, at least the ones that I'm hearing from every day. Let me know what you think. I'm on Twitter at @Pakman. Also, remember to get the daily audio podcast on your favorite podcasting app, whether it's Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play, Pandora, Spotify. We're on all of them. Get that daily podcast every single day, usually around 3 Eastern is when it's out. If you are anything like me, you probably aren't thrilled with the idea of going into a doctor's office right now. And thankfully, there's a practical and affordable way to take control of your health and get personalized care from the comfort of your home. It's a service called SteadyMD. They're one of our sponsors. You take a quiz, you get matched with a licensed primary care physician who understands your health needs. You have a 1-hour video call with your new doctor. You establish a meaningful relationship with them. And after that, your doctor is available to you anytime by text, phone, or video chat. This is not a random doctor on call. Each doctor at SteadyMD has a limited number of patients, so they actually have time to listen to you. You get the personal attention that you deserve. They can do almost everything an in-person doctor can do, perform medical evaluations, talk to you about health concerns, send prescriptions to your home or local pharmacy, and anything they can't do online, they'll quickly set you up with an in-person provider to do things like blood tests, as an example. You don't need insurance. It's only $99 a month with no other fees or copays. There are so many practical advantages to using SteadyMD for primary care, and it's also so much more affordable. Go to steadymd.com/Pakman to take the free quiz, see which doctor is right for you. I took their quiz. They matched me with a doctor who specializes in my particular health needs and situation. The doctor they gave me is a really perfect fit for me and my medical needs. There's no risk, no commitment to get started. Just click the link right underneath this video.